Hi there, and welcome back to the Indusoft Web Studio video training series. In this video, we're going to cover built-in scripting language that's built into Indusoft Web Studio. We're going to cover some of the math and the logic functions in addition to all those different scripting functions that are available. We're going to cover the interfaces where the functions can be used and an overview of common functions. The goal of this video is not to teach you everything about scripting, but to give you some simple examples and let you build what you need to build. The functionality is so flexible that you can build just about anything that you want to. So let's go here into the development environment of Indusoft Web Studio. And I've saved a screen based on my template that we created in a previous video, saved it as scripting, and I put this rectangle with a caption on it so we get started, just so I can show you some ideas of the 7 different, or at least 7 different places where the Indusoft built-in scripting language can be used. And we'll cover each one of these in the video. So the math worksheets, command animation, screen logic, the scheduler, ActiveX and .NET, as well as VB script, and tag/expression fields and caption fields. So what is the Indusoft Web Studio scripting language? Let's open up the help system here real quick and go into the appendix here covering the built-in scripting language. You can see that this describes the different functions that make up the scripting language, and it includes syntax, possible return values, and examples under each one of these. So if we were to take a look here under the logic and arithmetic operators, we can see that we have a full complement of logic, such as and, or, exclusive or, determining if something is equal to something or not, or greater than, and so on down this list. And we get into some pretty full-featured logic here. So we can do bitwise ands, bitwise or, bitwise exclusive ors. We can even rotate bits in words using this syntax here. Also, we can see down here that when we're doing math inside of the built-in scripting language, that it does follow the standard order of operations, or the standard order of evaluation. And you could modify that order by using parentheses. So we can change the order from multiplication happening first to the addition happening first by wrapping around parentheses. And that's pretty standard in any scripting or programming language. Let's go on to the next section here in the appendix, which is how to read the different function descriptions. In the different functions, we're going to find categories as mentioned here: the function name, the group that it's in, which is shown here in the help system, whether or not the execution is synchronous or asynchronous. And the description of the synchronous or asynchronous is the synchronous means that when the function is executed, it does have the possibility to pause while it's waiting for a response from that function before it moves on to the next line in the script. Asynchronous means it's just going to be executed in the background, and it's just going to continue without waiting. It's just going to keep on going without interruption. And then the next few things here are whether or not it's supported under Windows. By Windows, it means the desktop version of Windows or server. Embedded, meaning embedded viewer, embedded view or CE view licenses, or whether or not it's supported or not supported on a thin client. And you're going to see that. So for example, if we were to go here under the log message functions and open up trace, we can see that kind of description here, where it gives you whether or not it's synchronous or asynchronous and supported underneath each one of these. And then normally each function is going to have this type of format where it displays some type of syntax and tells you what the format of that script command is, and what its return value, if there is any, and any examples. And quite often you can cut and or copy and paste these examples right into your application, and they'll work just fine. Now these different scripting groups are broken up here again by group names, and this is one way to figure them out. So for example, if you wanted to go into security, you could take a look at all the security related commands. Another way that I found that I tend to use is by going here under search. We can get a list of available functions, I found one of the easier ways is just to type the word list, click on list topics, go down here to list of available functions. When you hit display, you get a list that looks like this, where it breaks down all the different commands by their groups. But this is a little bit more searchable. So for example, if I thought maybe I wanted to know more about the minimum command, but I didn't know where it was in this list, I could click here on this. So I've selected kind of this pane. I can hit Control F for find and maybe type min, and you see down here it's jumped right to my minimum command, and min command, and then I can go right in and look at that. So that's kind of a quick way to find and look at functions. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, maybe you can use the find command and help you look for some of that. We're going to spend some more time in this list towards the end of the video. I'm going to go through some common commands that you might use frequently. So let's go take a look at the 7 different interfaces, or again, at least 7 different interfaces of where you can use the built-in scripting language. The first is here under Tasks, and here under Math, we can right-click and insert a math worksheet. Now we can have up to 999 worksheets with 32,000 lines in each, so that's quite a bit of power there, but it really depends on the storage of your PC and whatnot. That's really where the limitation is going to become. The description field is for your documentation only, and you can break up the scripting or the math however you want to. The execution field has a capability of being a constant or a tag name or even an expression. If we take a look at the help system here for the math worksheet, we can take a look that the execution field, it's an expression, a single tag, or a constant that determines when this should execute. And notice that the project execute only when the execution field result is not 0. And if you always want it to execute, you can just hard code in just a constant of 1. Now, also the way that this works, go back into this, is that this execution field, whenever it is true, then kicks off this worksheet, and it will evaluate and all the way to the bottom and finish to the bottom before it checks the execution field again. So if this execution field becomes false while this worksheet is executing, let's say midway through this execution field tag or expression becomes false, that doesn't matter. It will still execute to completion before it comes back and checks the execution field again, and then continues back or starts over and does from top to bottom again. Now, very typically you're going to see this kind of 2-column worksheet whenever we're talking about built-in scripting language or this concept. Many of the different interfaces that we're going to bring up use this expression field here, where I can put constants, I can put strings, I can put expressions. This is really where the scripting language is or lives. When I put an expression in here and it evaluates, then the result dumps into this tag name, whatever we put here. And not every scripting command needs a resultant tag name. Sometimes you'll just have an expression here with an empty field here. So you have the option sometimes, for example, a recipe command, let's say. We can get, if there's any error code or success codes that come out of that, we can dump that into an error code in a tag, and we would put that here in this field. But if you don't know or don't want to know or don't care, then you don't have to put that tag name in that field. So let's see, what else did I want to talk about here? So it executes in order until the end, and then checks the execution field again. Because of that behavior, one of the things that you can do is make this kind of a one-shot where you can put a tag name in here, and in this worksheet, maybe down towards the bottom, you then set that tag to false, so that when it's done, it comes up here and checks the execution field. It's false, and then it does not execute again. But having said that, the way that this executes from beginning to end, it does not need to reset that tag at the end of the worksheet. That could be anywhere. So what might be common would be to put that tag name up at the top, set it to 0, and then using the slashes or the comments, comment in here that this is setting this up to be a one-shot, or it only triggers once and then shuts itself off. That way it's easy to read and right up there at the top. So it doesn't really matter where you reset that execution tag if you're going to do that. If you're going to do that inside of itself, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be outside, or again, as the help system mentioned, you can just put in a 1 there and it'll execute as fast as it can constantly. Let's now go to the not save this. Let's now go to the command animation. The command animation we've used a couple times in the training. We're going to talk a little bit more about this here, and I'm going to put a button on the screen. And now the button, we can put a command animation. That just seems to make more sense. But you can do it on other objects. For example, a rectangle can have, and other objects can have command animations. It does not have to be specifically on a button. When we double click on this, the command animation can be applied by clicking here, or we can go back to the graphics tab and click and enable the command animation on that particular selected object. Once we do this, you can see that we can have the built-in language, VB script, open screen, close screen, set tag, reset tag. So when we're using the built-in language, you can see here, just as we mentioned in that math worksheet, the command animation can have that 2-column worksheet kind of source and destination feel as well. So just to give you an idea of something that we might put in here, we might put a button that would toggle a value, change a value, write to the PLC, write to a tag that eventually gets out to the PLC, change screens, things of that nature. We already have a button here that opens the screen, but there's a script command called open that does that as well. So for example, we're here on the scripting screen. I can write a script that would be open, and then in parentheses, I'm going to enclose inside of parentheses the name of the screen called main. Well, that screen would have to be inside of quotes, MAIN, or double quotes, inside of the parentheses. Now the reason for the double quotes, that takes that as a string, because we could put a tag name in there, a string tag name, and then make this flexible enough to point to any screen that we wanted to just by changing the value of that string tag. So this will open up the main screen by itself. So let's give this a try. Let's save this. We'll put on the text of the button, we'll put the word main, and sorry, hit the plus key there. And now when we run this, and I don't have any navigation. Before we run, let's go back to our navigation. I didn't add the navigation because I wanted to show you another concept. It looks like I probably made these buttons too large. I'm going to probably run out of space for buttons. So I thought it would be a good time to show you a couple of different ways to do this. I could go in and shrink up these buttons one by one. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to show you a technique that's probably a little bit easier. I'm going to window around all of these buttons, select them all, and rather than trying to move them like this, which I can't do, I'm going to right-click and group them. Now they've become a group. Now I can shrink up this, the size of this a little bit, make sure I can still see my 2 lines of text, and now I can ungroup them. And now I've done that all at once and kept everything kind of in line and did them all the same size. So now I'm going to copy this button down here by holding down my control key. I'm going to go and change this as a way to get back to my scripting screen. And let's see, then I need to go in and change this to scripting. Eventually on this screen, I'm going to not only do the built-in scripting language, but I'm going to add some of the VB script stuff when we get to that video. So I'll keep that on there as well. So now that I have some navigation, now I can save this, run my project. And what we should see is this button here. When I click on it, it should go back to the main screen, and that's how that button works. Now, let's say that some operator interfaces or some PLCs, maybe you're doing a retrofit, maybe they want to keep track of what screen you're on. One of the things that we can do is let's go here under the screen logic and go into the screen attributes. Sorry, so this is by right-clicking on the background of the screen, or here on the graphics tab I can go into the attributes. Now this is where we originally set up the size of the screen. Here under this section here is called Screen Logic. Now these buttons look like they're disabled, but you have to check these checkboxes first to enable them. So on Open, what we can do is when we open, maybe we have a tag name called Screen Number. And now Intusoft Web Studio does not number screens. We name screens, but you have the ability to number them if you want to. There's also other facilities within the product to number screens if you need to. And let's see, I didn't want to put that there. Actually, I'm going to copy this and hold on my Control key. I'm sorry, copy this, Control C, come over here, Control V, and maybe this screen, this scripting screen is screen number 22. So now, if the PLC is monitoring screen number tag, then it would know that I'm on screen number 22. And you can set up the numbering in any way, shape, or form that you want to. So, since we're here in the screen logic, what I wanted to show you is this is on open. When this screen opens, and I'm guessing I hit cancel there. So again, the tag would be, let's jump back into that here, and change this to screen number and 22, say OK. So now that screen logic on open would write the 22 when this screen opened. If I enable this while open, it will execute this as fast as it can while the screen is open, unless you put a trigger in here. If you put a trigger in here, every time this tag in this field changes, then it will execute this worksheet for the screen logic. So it would take precedence. This trigger would take precedence over trying to execute it as fast as it can. And then thirdly, on close, this logic will be executed when the screen is closed, or before the screen is closed, while it's closing. On any of these, by default there's 12 of these rows. If you need more than these 12, what you can do is set a command in here or a tag in here that would be used in the execution field of a math worksheet, and then you have the 999 rows within, 32,000 rows within the math worksheet that you could then use. So you have quite a bit of functionality there just by chaining these together if you needed to. Let me cancel out of this, and continuing on with this concept of opening a screen, here I used the main screen. One of the things that we haven't played with very much is the different types of screens, and I'll show you quickly. I'm going to go ahead and insert a new screen, and I'm going to make the height and width of it 300. And instead of being a replace partial, I'm going to make it a pop-up screen. And this is going to be maybe something that will bring up a warning message. So I'm going to allow it to be resizing. I'm going to have a title bar, and we'll bring this with the title of warning. And we'll allow it to have the menus if there are any. We won't allow minimize and maximize boxes within the menus, but by doing this we'll have a close on there as well. And I think that's the bare minimum that I need. That's going to start in the upper left-hand corner as well. So you can see what this box looks like. And just as a quick temporary thing, I'm going to put a polygon in here, close that off, change this to be yellow. And then another little tip here with a piece of text. I want to put an exclamation point, but I want to kind of size that so it's going to fit inside of there. So I'll make it, just grab the corner of it, size it up here, put it in here. It's not quite centered, so I'll select both of those objects either by windowing around or holding down the Shift key. I'll use Format, Align, Center, and let's see, did I not do that right? Or it's actually taking the bounds of that box here. But you get the point. We'll do that formatting a little bit better if we're going to go into a production environment. And then maybe I'd put enter your warning, whatever warning message here. And you'd put whatever text you wanted to in here for whatever made sense for this. Then what we can do is save this screen. I'll save this as warning. And let me double check. Let me open that back up again. Make sure that I chose. I'm going to right click here, screen attributes. Yes, I did choose pop up. So I'll close that screen. Yes. And I'm going to copy this button over. And instead of opening the main screen, I'm going to open warning here. Now I could just as easy have used the open screen command, and this is like kind of a simplified version of this. I could have used this, but I'm going to go back to the built-in scripting because I'm going to build on this in a little bit. I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to say warning on the button, and when I run this, what you should see is while we have our menuing up here, our navigation and our header, I can open that pop-up message and have that displayed on the screen. And I can use this close, or the way that I set this up is I can reposition it too. But if you notice when I hit this button, it started up in the upper left-hand corner, that by 0, 0. If I open up my scripting commands again here, and I was to take a look at the open command, let's go into the help system, and here under search I can just go under open and scroll down till we find the open command here, and I need the other one here. We can see that the syntax of that command actually includes some optional features to it. It will allow us to position the window wherever we want it to and size the window, whether or not it's resizable. We can assign a number to this screen, and we can do some other things with this screen, and we can also get whether or not opening a screen had success or had failure, and then here's some different examples. In this case, what I'm going to do, just to show you a little bit more of an example, I'm going to just use the first two optional positioning commands here, or parameters, I should say. And what I'm going to do is do comma 300, comma 300, and that will position that starting location at 300, 300. Now when I run the screen, instead of popping up in the upper left, it pops up at 300, 300 over. So we got some positioning capabilities. And you could actually read the place where the cursor was pressed and then position accordingly, or move it around if you wanted to level where on a touch screen, let's say. So there's a lot of different options there. Okay, so let's go back into the scripting, and here on the button I had done an open command, and so that's a command animation. Quite simply, there's some buttons, and I think we probably covered this a little bit in the animations video, but I'm going to just touch on it here. I want to have a value here, and I'm going to add a command animation, and I'll just say value, make a new tag called value 1, and that doesn't exist, so I'll just make that an integer. And the expression, I'll just make simply value 1 plus 1. And on the text of this button, go back to the button here, underneath here, I can just put in curly brackets, value 1. And now it'll display that value, and every time I press on that, it will add 1 to itself. Whatever the value is, add 1 to it, and then write it into here. So again, that source destination kind of concept there. So let's take this, try running this, and now every time I press this, it adds 1 to it. Now also notice that and I think we covered this also under the animations, the on while, on up, on right, so we could do different scripting in each of those. You can also combine, for example, on the on down is built-in language, and then on the on up we could change this to VB script, so we could have either or complement each other. That's another good point to bring up, is that the built-in scripting language does not take precedence over VB script or vice versa. You can use them at the same time in the same project and complement each other with them. So let's say I went through the math worksheet, the command animation, I touched on screen logic. Let's talk about the scheduler. We're going to dedicate a whole video to the scheduler, but right now we're just going to touch on it briefly. Here under tasks, if I right click on scheduler and insert, we can create a scheduler worksheet. Again, the description field is for your documentation purposes only. But what I wanted to briefly point out is there's 3 different events that we can trigger here: calendar, clock, and change. And very similar to the math worksheets, this can be 999 worksheets or up to 32,000 lines each. Now that's pretty big, but most people don't use that many. But you can group them how you want to. Maybe you have some simulation scheduling worksheets. Maybe you have some production or manual mode schedulers or production mode or whatever, however you want to break it up. Or you can just put all of them in one as well. Again, we're going to cover this in a separate video, but a key concept here related to the built-in scripting language is these two columns right here. Whenever these triggering events, or whenever these events happen, whatever the logic is in here, it will evaluate this expression and dump it into this tag field, as long as the disable field is not true. So again, we'll cover this in another video as to what these different triggers are and how you can use these. But this interface is very similar to the other interfaces that we've seen with these two different columns, expression and tag. Okay, so we'll move on to the next interface, which is ActiveX and .NET, which we will also cover in their own videos. But I'm going to go here under Graphics, go under ActiveX, and pull from this list of different ActiveX. Now your list might be different in your computer. I'm going to go here in mine. I have a slider control that I'm going to put into my project here. And I'm not going to configure the slider yet. We'll do that in another video. But I did want to show you where you can use scripting in here. Within this object, we can configure properties, methods, and events. And when we cover the ActiveX and .NET controls in their own video, we'll talk about what each one of these means. But events are something that effectively the ActiveX or .NET controls report back to Indusoft Web Studio that this event has happened on that particular control. Now, ActiveX and .NET objects are third-party, not necessarily Indusoft Web Studio created objects. And this is their way of telling us that these things, these events have happened to that object and let us act upon that. So, for example, a mouse down or a click, things of that nature. So let's say that we want to know if this object was clicked, then we can execute the script that's in here. Now we can expand on this, and we can either choose VBScript or the built-in scripting language. And here again, you can see this two-column methodology. So let's work with that value 1 again. Let's say value 1, we'll say plus 5 in this case, and we'll write that back to value 1. And that is when we click on this particular object. I've done no other configuration. I haven't configured how the slider is going to work within this, but just that the event, when it gets a click, it will add 5 to value 1, which we should be able to see over here on this button. So let's go ahead and try this. Save it, close it. And the scripting, right now the value is 5. I can still use this button to go up by 1. And you would not normally do this, but every time I click on this slider, now I can see that value is going up by 5. So that's how you can interact with VBScript and ActiveX objects using the built-in scripting language under the events. The next thing that I'd like to show you here is under VBScripts in general. We can use the built-in scripting language inside of VBScripts. So let's take, for example, where may be a good place to do this? Let's just do this on a button. We'll add another button here, and this will be an open command. What will we do? Well, let's open up the warning again. So we'll say warning. And here under command, instead of choosing the built-in scripting type here, we'll choose the VBScript. Now within here, I can use Indusoft tags, I can use built-in scripting functions, and things of that nature if I just precede them with a $sign. So if I start with a $sign and then I start typing the built-in scripting command. So for example, we've seen the open command. I can do OPE, and we can see that that IntelliSense already knows about that open command in here. So I can just click on that, and it will complete that for me. And then if I type another parenthesis, here we can see that the IntelliSense built into VBScript is telling me what features I have or what parameters I can put in here. So there's the string that is the screen file name, optional parameters 1 and 2, x1, y1, x2, y2, resize. So all those parameters from the built-in scripting command open I can do in here. So for example, I can do this warning, close quotes, close parenthesis, and even though this is in the even though this is in the VBScript type, by preceding it with a $, I can use this within the VBScript, use InduSoft scripting within the VBScript. So I can mix and match in here. So that's really nice. If I try to execute this second button here, I should be able to click on run. Because I didn't position that, it still should show up in that upper left-hand corner, which it does. Go ahead and close that, and go back in and take a look at the next interface. Let's see. Back here on the scripting, so VBScript. Oh, the next thing is, this is why I keep saying more than 7, because the tag expression field and the caption fields within multiple they are within multiple places. So for example, if I was to put a rectangle on the screen and put a position animation, here in the tag expression field, I can build up expressions built up of logic that are comprised of functions of the built-in scripting language. So I could use tags, math functions, logic in here. Also, for example, the show on condition here. I can put whole expressions in here. And as I understand it, the fields here can be up to 1024 characters in length. And even though you run out of space in the field, it will still continue to take it and scroll off the viewable area there. So fields like these, the tag expression fields, the show on condition, you can put logic in as well. And also on the rectangle, let's go back to the rectangle portion of this here. Here in the caption field, inside of curly braces, I can put some of the expressions and the scripting language into this object as well. So let's do that, get rid of that. And so that kind of covers the various scripting interfaces. Let's touch base here. Let me save this screen, open the header, and what I want to do is briefly take a look at the exit button. I'm going to copy this exit button, and now that we've covered symbols in a previous video, I'm going to show you how that I can unlink this linked symbol. Edit this linked symbol, and if I ungroup it, you can see that it's got a bitmap on it, it's got this label text on it, and it's got the button that has the command animation applied to it. Now most of this is VBScript, but you can see here that the $ext, now that's the do external translation on this, so this will accept external translation. And the way that this is all working is that this is asking us or prompting us, are you sure you want to exit? And then it just simply does the built-in scripting command shutdown. So we can quite simply remove, in fact, let's just do this. Instead of saving this as the button, not save this, I'm going to unlink this link symbol and bust it into its individual components. Now I'll go back into this command, and this way I won't overwrite my exit button. I'm just going to get rid of all the VBScript in there that prompts me and just do an immediate shutdown of the application. So now these two buttons are going to act differently. So when we go into the application and run it, I don't have to be in the scripting, but I can hit this exit button and it prompts me, are you sure? That was all that VBScript that was in there. I'm going to say no, so I stay in the application. Now on this button, this one, we removed all that prompting, and now when I click on it, it just immediately exits. So we can see that that button, by removing all of that logic and using the built-in script command called shutdown, preceded by $, has done that for us. Notice here that if there's no arguments inside, if there's no arguments or parameters for that particular function, we still do need the open and close parenthesis. That's important to know. So that's one of the ways that InduSoft Web Studio can detect whether or not this is a tag or a built-in function. It has to have those parentheses, even open and close with empty in there. Okay, so let's get rid of this button now that I've put that on the screen. Close this, save that. And now let's open up the help system and run through some of the common commands that you're going to run into. So I'm going to go back to here, search, I'll do the list the topics, and then go back to list of available functions. I'm going to point out, I don't know, maybe 10 different functions here. The trace function, the way that this trace function works is it will put out a text message into the output window or the log win and allow you to see and help you debug a project. So for example, if we're not sure of what's happening, we can actually take this command, this trace, put text in and say, hey, this is where I've gotten to in my logic, and that will show up in the output window down here. So for example, let's go back into the scripting. Let's go into, I'll copy this button down, and maybe before I open the main screen, copy this, paste this down here, and here I'll put in trace, and then inside of parentheses, opening main screen, and now there's other ways we can do this as well, but you'll get the idea. So now that trace message will come out down here, but there's one more thing we have to do first. Here in the output window, I have to right-click, turn on settings, and select trace messages to come out. So now when I go ahead and run, and go into my scripting and click on that button, I go back to the main screen, but now we can see that here in the output window it says that I've gets that message there. Probably another good thing to do would be to go ahead and insert date and time so we can see when that actually happened. Let's go back into the help system. So that was the trace. Back into the list. Available functions. The mod command is a modulus. It's a script command that basically, if you're familiar with programming, this is a division, and it gets the remainder left over from the division. Now, a couple different features that can be useful here is you can determine whether or not a value is evenly divisible by 2 or evenly divisible by, or it's not. That way you can determine if it's an odd or an even value, let's say. Or you can also use this to check, am I on the 15-minute mark of an hour? I can take the hours system tag and use it in this expression and put a 15 here as a denominator, and then it will return the value and let me know when it's evenly divisible by 15, 30, 45. Or on the 15, 30, 45 marks of the hour, so you get that idea. You can see that there's a whole lot that I'm not going to cover. The video will be really, really long at that point. Another one that I want to point out that's very common to use is the if statement, and I did use this in another video. The concept with this one is the if statement evaluates the expression here before this comma, and if it's true, then it takes this result or expression. If it's false or the else condition, then it does what's after this second comma. So we can do this. So if this expression, so that's what's before the first comma, if this is true, then it takes this value. Since 5 is greater than 4, the result would be 10. That would get dumped into this tag, whatever you choose to put over here. If, let's say we swap this around, is 5 less than 4, then that's not true. Therefore, the 6 would be the result. And you can nest if statements. So here we have an if statement. If tag A is greater than tag B, then between the next set of commas, then we can do this if statement. And if the first one wasn't true, then it'll evaluate down to here, but then it's got nested. I have seen people use up to 9 nestings deep. I don't really know what the limit is, but any more than that is there's probably not good programming practices going on at that point. Scrolling down here, let's see, another one that we'd like to take a look at would be the, let's see, did I pass some up here? Nope, mod if string length. So there's quite a few different string handling commands, and here's one, string length. So we can put a string tag in here, or in this case just text within double quotes, and the strlen command will give us the length back. So if we use this, this will tell us that it's 18 characters long. If we use this, it'll tell us it's 19 characters long. Also notice here that we have the slashes. That's how we use comments, so that we can comment our code, and I highly suggest that you do that. I recently went to a project that I had created more than 10 years ago, and I had commented it, and I was so thankful that I did. It helped me understand what I was doing back then, which that would have never happened had I not done that. Keep on going here. Date and time commands, trig functions. We can even get pi, so you don't have to remember what pi is. We touched on the open command, and a lot of times the different screen types. We built a pop-up just now, but before we were using replace partial, where you don't have to close screens, because if it overlaps the other screen, it will automatically close. But you can do your own closing of screens if you wanted to. Continuing on down to the module activity. Oh, here in the security, we have enough functions here to create your own administration for security. So you can add users, delete users, block users. So you can create your own security administration screen. Here under module activities, these are quite a few different functions in here. One that I'd like to point out is the logon. The logon actually launches the security system, so you can log on. It doesn't launch the security system, let me rephrase that. It allows you to log on with a specific user, so here we could put the username and the password in there. This might not be the most secure way to do it. We have other ways to handle that. If you just put just log on, it pops open the logon dialog and prompts the user for the password, their username and password, I should say. The next couple here, we will cover these in detail when we get to the recipe and the report, but one of the things I wanted to point out here, the recipe function has 4 different functions. It has save, load, delete, and initialize. And then the other thing that this one has is a returned value. So when we use these, if we're saving a recipe or loading a recipe, notice where save and load are at, and that's what these different functions are. If this executes and works just fine, then the return tag value will be a 0. But if there's a problem, it tells you what the problem is and lets you then act upon that. You can display a message to the user, or say that if it was non-zero, then there's some problem, and go get the maintenance person or the engineer that developed this. In a similar fashion, here under report, we can see in here that there are disk is a function, prn is a function, PDF, we can print a PDF, and very similar, we can get these returned values, these error codes, and here's some good examples as well. Continuing on, we can go down to the shutdown command. The shutdown command is the one we just talked about in the exit button. So you can see here that shutdown command. And WinExec. WinExec is a pretty useful one. InduSoft Web Studio has a lot of functionality within the product itself, but there are times when you need to launch third-party Windows programs on their own. By using the Windows exec, it's very similar to the command prompt, where you can launch applications or other Windows programs, and you can tell it, let me go scroll down to the examples because that's probably the best way to understand it. So I can say WinExec and then launch notepad.exe, and it will open up Notepad, or Paint, or statistics program, or CAD, or your PLC programming software. You can do a lot of different things with that. Now, in addition to opening those programs, you can tell it what state does it display full screen or as an icon. Is it maximized? You can tell it. So here is number 4 is its recent size, and so we can see that's why that 4 is there. So there's a lot of different options in the WinExec, and that's a pretty powerful tool to have to launch external programs. If you can't do something within Intusoft Web Studio, there's probably another program out there that'll do it. File commands. We have the ability to create pretty much your own file browser out of all the different commands. Rename, find file, a lot of different functionality there. In the trending video, we covered the hist-to-text function, so you can see we've got some capabilities within that function. Now, in the trend video, we covered the .exe, but I wanted to point out that there's a script function here that will allow you to do the same thing, and you have some more flexibility over what it does and how it does it. Continuing on, ReadFileM. Now, ReadFileM pops open a little file browser and lets you select a file from it. And we're going to do this in, I forget if it's a recipe or the report, we're going to use this to select a file. But one of the things to point out is this optional field here for change directory. If it's set to true, then it lets the operator navigate to different folders or directories within Windows. If it's set to false, it blocks them and restricts them to just that file path that you've specified in this field here. So here's some examples of how you would use that as well. Just a couple more to touch on. If we scroll down, here's some different graphics, scripting functions. The play command, play is an interesting one. It plays a WAV file, so maybe when you touch a button, it would play an associated sound. Now that has to be in the project, and depending on if your PC is got a speaker on it, or if you drive an external amplified speaker from the sound port, you may have to pay attention to how that's coming out of there as well. And get application path and get computer IP. I think I used get computer IP in the header of our screen, so it shows our IP address. Get application path. I don't know if I've used that one in any of the videos yet. Move this help off the screen. Go down here, and if I say get app path and then enclose or parentheses, then I can see where my application is on the PC. And by using this and maybe concatenating other strings in here, I can find where various either text files or databases or graphics files are at. And even if I move this project to another folder on the PC, this will know where it is, and it'll all be relative to where this is stored. And I won't have to go then and change my entire project. This makes it very flexible, very portable. Get computer IP, just reiterate what that's doing. Get computer IP, open close parenthesis. That shows the IP address of my local PC here. Let's bring the help system back into view. Go back. And let's see, just a couple more here. For and next. The for next loop. If you've done any programming at all, you're probably familiar with this. The basic idea is this steps through a certain number of times, and the syntax for that is we set this up so for 1 to 5, this will go through this 5 times, and in steps of 1. So it will count up in steps of 1, so it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we wanted to, we could put in a different step rate here. So for example, if we went from 1 to 10 by 2s, it would go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, yeah, and then it would go up to 10. The next one would be 11, and I don't think it would do that. I'd have to test that for sure, but you get the idea. Now, while you're going through here, the value of what step you're on is in the tag field here, and the next has to be in this tag name column that complements this for. And because the way we do things in this spreadsheet format, if you're familiar with the for next loop, you've probably seen 4 with code between it, and then the next is in the kind of similar alignment as the 4. But the next actually is going to be in the tag name field, and then you can have multiple rows in between here of scripting that you could do certain scripts so many times before, so that scripting that's contained in between here actually gets executed that many times until this for next loop runs out, and then it moves on to the next line after the next. Hopefully that was a good explanation. Let's see. So we've covered, I think, all the different. Oh, we got one more that I'd like to cover here. The we can also see that there's some ODBC commands supported in here. Lots of different database stuff. Configure email and send email extended. Those are some pretty popular ones. We have to configure our email server either using a script, or there's also a built-in interface, so we don't have to use the script anymore. So here under project, here under email FTP, we can do essentially the same things that script does to configure the server, just by filling out these blanks. Now the script command can be a little bit more powerful and flexible, but for most applications this will serve it well. Continuing on, some dial-up commands for modems. And here's what I wanted to show you, which is the xget, xrun, and xset. These are different ways to interface with ActiveX and .NET controls by using scripting. So I can set properties associated with an ActiveX or .NET. I can run methods associated with that. I can get the current property or the feedback from that particular object. And so this is a way that I can interact with ActiveX and .NET using scripting as well. And just to continue on and scroll down, you can see there's a whole host of other functions as well. So that should give you a good idea of the power and the capabilities of the InduSoft scripting language. Hopefully you got something out of this. Thanks, and have a great day.